It's The Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
And when government gets bigger, the individual gets smaller.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
For thee, but not for me. And I agree that we got to change that.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
If, in fact, you are working for the man, it's a new form of slavery.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Indeed. Let's have a conversation. Welcome to the Kim Monson Show. Thank you so much for joining us. You're each treasured, you're valued, you have purpose today. Strive for excellence. Take care of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. My friends, we were made for this moment. And thank you to the team. That's producer Joe, producer Luke, Rachel, Nicole, Zach, Echo, Charlie, all the people here at Crawford Broadcasting. Happy Wednesday, producer Joe.
Happy Wednesday, Kim.
It's been quite a week. We had two guest hosts this week, Brad Beck on Monday and Alan Thomas on Tuesday. I was traveling. I was in probably my happy place, and that is Western Wyoming. I love it out there. And so it's good to be back. And we will be doing a rebroadcast of one show, then broadcasting an interview with Jay Davidson on Friday. So the first hour will be a rebroadcast with Leslie Manookian, which is a great interview, and she's the founder of Health Freedom Defense Fund. And then Jay Davidson will be the next hour. I've got family coming in. As many of you know, my father passed on, and his services are on Friday morning. And just thought we had a lot of different things going on. So those are two really great shows. So I think they'll be terrific for everybody. Joe, don't you?
I had a good one.
Yeah. Okay. You have a good one or what? You think it'll
Yes,
be good?
ma'am, I did.
Okay, great. And what is that? Was something you wanted to share, or just you think they're good shows?
I thought they were really excellent shows.
Okay, fantastic. So that's what Friday will look like. And cannot believe that Christmas is right around the corner. Time is going so quickly, but we've got a lot to talk about. So again, thank you to all of you for listening. Check out the website. Oh my gosh, Zach is doing amazing stuff over there. And you've got to take a look at the website. It's super awesome. And sign up for our weekly email newsletter while you're there. If you're not on our list, we send out that on Sundays and highlights our upcoming guests as well as our most recent essays. Tomorrow's featured guest in the second hour is Pam Long, and she has written an extensive piece, The Best and Worst of Colorado Politics, and we'll publish that this Sunday, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. So again, sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmunson.com as well. Text line is 720-605-0647. That's 720-605-0647. And thank you to all of you who support us. We are an independent voice on an independent station, searching for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Also, two great sponsors of the show is the Harris family. They are gold sponsors of the show, as well as the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And the National Shooting Sports Foundation has a government relations team that relentlessly advocates for measures on behalf of and works in defense of the firearms and ammunition industry at all levels and before all branches of government. And it's so important that we defend this right to keep and bear arms, because if we can't legally produce, ship, and buy a firearm, then we really can't bear it. And so, again, it's great to have the National Shooting Sports Foundation as a sponsor of the show as well. Our quote, let's go to our word of the day. And I chose this word because we'll be talking with Daniel Turner, who is the founder of Power of the Future here, and as our featured guest in the first hour. And these intermittent power sources, such as wind and solar, intermittent doesn't work for our everyday people's lives. Being intermittent to have refrigeration, heat, air conditioning. So our word of the day is intermittent. It's intermittent. It's an adjective, and it could be stopping and starting at intervals, periodic. It could be alternately containing and empty of water, or coming and going at intervals, alternating, recurrent, or periodic. And the sentence I created was, Americans are taking for granted reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant power sources. Wind and solar provide intermittent power. This makes it very difficult for individuals to pursue our hopes and dreams if we can't get our car out of the garage because of intermittent electricity. Of course, the powers, the World Economic Forum and all, and don't really want you to be able to get your car out of the garage, but that's another subject that we will talk about. Our quote of the day I took from Elizabeth Edwards. I thought this was really, anyway, this hit me. And she was born in 1949. She died in 2010. She was an American attorney, author, and healthcare activist. She was married to John Edwards, the former U.S. Senator from North Carolina, who was the 2004 United States Democrat vice presidential nominee. And whether or not you like her politics or not, I did think this was a really interesting quote. She said, she stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her way, she adjusted her sails. And I just thought that was a really interesting quote. So again, she stood in the storm, and the wind did not blow her way. She adjusted her sails. Show again comes to you because of sponsors such as Hooters Restaurants, and Hooters has 5 locations. That's Loveland, Aurora, Lone Tree, Westminster, and Colorado Springs. They have great specials for lunch Monday through Friday, and Wednesday, which is today, is Wings Day. You buy 20 wings, you get an additional 10 for free, and the girls are coming over tonight, and so I will be partaking of that special of buy 20 wings, an additional 10 for free. And that is for to go or to dine in. So let's get over here to our day in history. I find this super interesting as I'm going through this. And I was at church on Sunday in western Wyoming. And of course, my father has just passed on. So I've been thinking about mortality, life, death, life after death. And the pastor said something, and I knew this, but I hadn't totally thought about this. He said, this, and I'm paraphrasing what I heard, is this life of ours is just a blip in, this life on earth is just a blip in this long, long eternity. And of course, we decide regarding Jesus Christ what we think about eternity as a Christian. Believing in Jesus Christ and his resurrection, that this is a blip, and after this physical death, there is life after this, which I really needed to reflect on that, because as I look at these headlines on a regular basis, it can be a bit daunting, because the everyday individual, the American freedom, particularly our straight Caucasian men, are under attack. And they've been under attack for a long time. And we've got a real problem. I saw a picture, I think it might have been from the Daily Caller, down at the southern border. There is just so many men that are coming across the southern border. They're fighting age. We don't know where they're coming from. Yes, there may be some that are coming here that want to get a job and send money back to their country of origin. But this looks like an invasion to me. This is a real problem. And then I just watch these headlines, and so many of these headlines are just out there to try to keep people on edge, to keep them concerned about things that may not happen. We need to understand the things that are happening and address them. We can't sit around and wring our hands, but we need to address them. Susan Kochevar sent me a headline of, it was the Corporate Transparency Act, I think, of 2021. So I've started to research it. And it is basically going to say to 30 million small business owners that they have to do some reporting, that if they don't, there could be jail time, $500 a day of fines. My friends, this may be our 1775 moment. We've got to really be talking about this, but we'll continue these conversations on this. I did want to get going on some of these days in history, and I think it's important we look back at history, and then realize that we are made for this time, and that we have a duty to pass on liberty to the next generation. And that is both political liberty, economic liberty, all those things. So, but back in 1266, rebels holed up inside Kenilworth Castle surrender after 172 days to Henry III, ending one of the longest sieges in medieval English history. I'm not sure what I would want to know about what was going on after 172 days in that castle. 1355, the greatest traveler of his age, Ibn Battuta of Tangier, completes his work, The Travels, detailing his 29 years spent traveling the Islamic world and beyond, including India, China, and Indonesia. 1577, Francis Drake set sail from England on an epic 3-year circumnavigation of the world aboard the Pelican, which was later renamed the Golden Hind. 1642, Dutch explorer Abel Tasman sights the South Island of present-day New Zealand. Initially, he calls it Staten Land and changes it a year later to New Zealand. And I imagine that's probably where we get the word Tasmanian devil, is from Dutch explorer Abel Tasman. Let's see, next thing, 1742, William IV, Prince of Orange, tests his mother's potatoes. Gosh, there's so many things I need to learn about. I wonder what that was all about. 1774, Paul Revere and Wentworth Cheswell ride to warn Portsmouth of the approach of British warships. 1861, these are all during the Civil War. 1861, the Battle of Allegheny Summit in West Virginia. 1862, the Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And 1864, the Battle of Fort McAllister in Georgia. 1916, an avalanche kills 10,000 Austrian and Italian troops in 24 hours in Tyrol. 1920, Hans Riegel founds the sweet company Haribo in Bonn, Germany. The 1920, the League of Nations establishes the International Court of Justice in The Hague. There's a whole bunch of very concerning things that happen at The Hague. 1967, this is a weather event. San Diego, California records snow at a zero elevation after temperatures plunge 19 degrees in 8 hours. That was 1967. 1977, 14 University of Evansville basketball players die in a plane crash. 1981, Poland's authoritarian communist government declares martial law and arrests Solidarity activists in a failed attempt to crush the opposition. And this is super interesting. 1983, 9,655 people watched this game. It's the highest scoring NBA game. Detroit, 186. Denver, 184. 3 overtimes. And in 1993, the Dow Jones hits a record 3,764.43. And, of course, that has skyrocketed from there. I want to continue with some of these days in history, but the show comes to you because of our sponsors. And the Roger Mangan Insurance Team is a wonderful sponsor. Roger is my insurance agent. And he's been serving his customers for 47 years, providing for his family and giving back to the communities of Centennial, Littleton, Highlands Ranch, Inglewood, Greenwood Village, as well as Castle Rock. He can help anyone, anywhere in Colorado and the contiguous states. So for more help with your insurance needs, call Roger Mangan at 303-795-8855. Like a good neighbor, Roger Mangan's insurance team is there.
Most of us have been there. That surprise crunch when you backed into a car in a parking lot or someone rear-ended you at a stoplight? First thing you do is stop and breathe. Second, say a prayer of gratitude that no one was hurt. Third, look for your insurance card. And fourth, be grateful that you have your insurance with Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Agency. You can breathe easier knowing that you can reach the Roger Mangan team 24/7 when you need them. For that Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance peace of mind, call Roger Mangan today at 303-795-8855. That's 303-795-8855.
Focused and wise marketing is essential for your success, especially during tough economic times. If you love The Kim Munson Show, strive for excellence and understand the importance of engaging in the battle of ideas that is raging in America, then talk with Kim about partnership, sponsorship opportunities. Email Kim at kimmunson.com. Kim focuses on creating relationships with individuals and businesses that are tops in their fields. So they are the trusted experts listeners turn to when looking for products or services. Kim personally endorses each of her sponsors. Again, reach out to Kim at kimmunson.com.
Welcome back to the Kim Munson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Munson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmunson.com as well. And thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. Something's a good idea. You shouldn't have to force people to do it. My friends, we are a very important voice here in Colorado. We're one of the most respected grassroots voices in Colorado. Colorado is at the tip of the spear of what is happening in our country, and it is so important to have these local voices. We're continuing to see consolidation of voices into just national media, and that's why what we are doing here is so important, to help you get your brain around these issues so that you can engage in this battle of ideas with your friends, your family, and your colleagues. So be sure and talk with your friends and family and tell them about the show. If they can't listen, we're on live 6 to 8 a.m. First hour is rebroadcast 1 to 2 in the afternoon. Second hour, 10 to 11 at night. That's on all KLZ platforms. We, between Joe and Zach and Echo, we are, knock on wood, getting to the point where we are having our shows posted same day. This is a huge accomplishment for this little team that I have. But once that happens, then the show goes to the streaming services like iTunes and Spotify. And so if you can't listen to the show during the initial broadcast or the rebroadcast, you can listen afterwards. Wanted to continue on with our this day in history. In 2003, former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein is captured near his home near the town of Tikrit during Operation Red Dawn by U.S. forces. 2017, Salma Hayek accuses Harvey Weinstein of sexual harassment and threatening to kill her. What a guy, and here this guy making all these movies. And I remember when I started to see some of these R-rated movies, and I really haven't gone to that many. Because when I say at the end of the show, think good thoughts, read great books, I'm serious about that. We only have 24 hours in a day. And we make a decision with what we think about, with what we put in our brains. And here there was just crap. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that word. Anyway. Many of these movies were just not great, and Harvey Weinstein was creating a lot of those movies, and they were just trash. But it was done under the guise of art. Well, as we're seeing, art had been co-opted to just really be trash. So anyway, I'll stand on my mom's soapbox on that one. This next one, I thought, this is so not true. But this was back in 2021. As we take a look back, this makes it look like 1 in 100 Americans are dying. But anyway, this was the headline. And this is all from On This Day website. 1 in 100 Americans age 65 has now died of COVID-19, or 75% of total deaths, according to the CDC. And that is where we realize we cannot trust the CDC. 2022, Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, is arrested in the Bahamas after the U.S. files criminal charges against him, including wire fraud and money laundering. Remember, he was a big contributor to the radical activist Democrats that have taken over the Democrat Party, and his parents were both professors at Stanford. It's important to connect that dot. And then lastly, 2022. U.S. President Joe Biden signs the Respect for Marriage Act into law, mandating federal recognition of same-sex marriages in a ceremony at the White House. And this is really the Disrespect of Marriage Act law. Now, so marriage, we have words that define things. Marriage, up until just the last few years, marriage defined a relationship between one man and one woman. And many libertarians, many of my friends say government shouldn't even be involved in this. And I understand over here on the same-sex marriage side, if someone has been contributing to Social Security all these years, and they pass on, they would like their Social Security to go to their loved one. I get that. Changing the definition of marriage is not the solution to that, but that's the solution that we've gotten to. And, of course, there's all the other discussions about Social Security. Social Security was founded, 1935. The retirement age was 65. Back then, people didn't live that long. Very few people lived that long. So it was this promise that was made to people. Well, now, because of people are living much, much longer, there's people, certainly there's a question about passing this on. What really needed to happen, because Social Security really is kind of a Ponzi Marxist scheme, is that we really needed to step back and, again, have charities help people that were in very difficult situations. And, of course, now I'm thinking about the income tax amendment and how we now have nonprofits that don't have to pay taxes, but now we see these nonprofits, big nonprofits, such as the Center for Tech and now I can't remember the name, CITC, Innovation. And anyway, it was the big nonprofit that Mark Zuckerberg gave big money to, and I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, oh my gosh, he got a tax write-off to do this. The Center for Tech and Civic Life, that's what it was. And it was founded by Obamaites, and it was very involved in changing things in our election. Of course, former Colorado Secretary of State candidate on the Republican side, Pam Anderson, sits on their board. And so when we look at uniparty stuff and connecting those dots, it's important. But anyway, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how I got from Respect for Marriage Act over to election integrity, but I guess it's all somewhat connected. But the federal government is now involved in recognition of same-sex marriages. But now we're taking this and we're going to a point now where it really is discounting women. Now we've got men that are competing in women's sports. We've got men marrying men, women marrying women. And this is antithetical to nature's law as far as marriage. What people do, again, it's not my business, and I know that there's other things out there, but what has happened when all this gets into government, we are now to a point where we're discounting women. We are not even recognizing women. There's been an assault on straight, particularly white men, but straight men overall, and this has been going on for quite some time. We're seeing a breakdown in our society. So with that, let me get over here to just some of the headlines that I wanted to share with you. And then we'll be talking with Daniel Turner here in the second hour, and then Trent Loos in the first hour, and Daniel Turner in the, Daniel Turner first hour, Trent Loos second hour. Okay, I just wanted to run through this. This is from MSN.com. Kathy Hochul's health department is considering detaining New Yorkers without due process. That is so unconstitutional. It's unbelievable. Ernst & Young is laying off more than 30 partners and 100 consultants before the holidays as the company faces tough economic times. And apparently during COVID, they had ramped up significantly, and so they are going to be pulling back on that. The left's message to girls regarding these men competing in women's sports, which is pretty unbelievable, is that girls need to learn to lose gracefully. Quite frankly, if we have men that do not want to compete in men's sports but want to compete in women's sports, this whole transgender thing, and we need to no longer say transgender. These are men that want to be women. There really needs to be a category of competition for men who want to identify as women and compete in women's sports. So they need to have their own sporting events instead of competing against girls. So it says, during a recent House Oversight Committee hearing, Fatima Graves, the Democrat witness and head of the National Women's Law Center, demeaned the experience of women and girls forced to compete against physical males in sports by suggesting that they learn to lose gracefully. And this is the message she wants young women to receive, and it appears to be the message many in the Democrat Party want to promote. And the author on this is this is Fox News, Michelle Exner is an opinion piece. And it says, she goes on, she says, I spend many off hours shuttling my daughter, a young female athlete, to and from sporting events and practices. Sometimes it's running. I ran alongside her as she trained for a race for months, pouring her heart into every mile. And sometimes it's swimming. Throughout the year, she has 3 grueling lap practices a week and regularly early morning swim meets. Sometimes she wins, and when she does, it's because of a combination of her natural abilities and her dedication to practice. Sometimes she loses, and this is the reality of sports, which she is learning. But win or lose, my daughter and all female athletes must be allowed to compete on a level playing field. Only then can we talk about grace. So do you not find it ironic, my friends, that from an economic standpoint, the radical activists that have taken over the Democrat Party have said that they want to level the playing field? In essence, what they want to do is they want to kneecap people that are trying to work hard and make a success of themselves in pursuing the American dream, and through taxes and fees and regulations to bring people down. And the level playing field will be that everybody is mediocre at best. But here it says that that we have girls that are not competing on a level playing field because we've got men that are competing against them, and that is just not fair. And so I think that the radical activists that are in control of the Democrat Party, I know that they are trying to browbeat us. I was at the airport yesterday flying back, and I went into the women's restroom, and I'm thinking, I do not want men coming into this restroom and being there next to me. I do not. This is not okay. And so we must take a stand at this and we must protect our girls, and we must also protect our boys and let them know what it means to be masculine, what it means to be a man. And we need to start to really talk with our kids about this. And who would have ever dreamed that this would occur in the United States of America? But it is occurring. That we have these important discussions because of our sponsors, and one of those is Karen Levine. She is a award-winning RE/MAX realtor.
Award-winning realtor Karen Levine has nearly 30 years of experience with RE/MAX Alliance. Karen Levine works to protect your property rights at the local, county, state, and national level. Karen Levine believes in home ownership. Working with realtor Karen Levine helps you navigate through the process of buying or selling your home. Call Karen Levine to help you buy or sell your home because she understands that it's more than just a house. Call award-winning realtor Karen Levine with RE/MAX Alliance today at 303-877-7516. That's 303-877-7516.
A recent report notes that the number of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder is consistently and dramatically increasing. This is heartbreaking. If your child or grandchild or someone you know has been diagnosed with autism or ADHD following exposure to Tylenol or acetaminophen during pregnancy, call Boson Law at 303-999-9999. Boson Law is a Colorado-based law firm who has been fighting Big Pharma for over 20 years. Call now at 303-999-9999 for a free, no-obligation review of your potential claim. Call now at 303-999-9999.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. And you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. I cannot believe that Christmas is right around the corner. And a beautiful gift would be to purchase a brick to honor your loved one's military service that will be on one of the pathways of service at the USMC Memorial, which is located right here at 6th and Colfax in Golden. And I have purchased 2 bricks, one for my father. He was in the Air Force, and as you all know, he just recently passed on. And when you purchase a brick, you get this beautiful certificate. And my friends, it was one of the best gifts I've ever given him. And so, and the other one that I purchased was for my father's cousin who died at Pearl Harbor in 1941. And his remains were just recently identified. And so I purchased a brick for him, for his service as well. So you can do this by going to usmcmemorialfoundation.org. That's usmcmemorialfoundation.org. I'm so pleased to have on the line with me Daniel Turner. You know him. He is the founder of Power the Future. And power, reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant energy power sources allow each of us, everyday people, to pursue our hopes and dreams and to thrive and prosper. And so that's why what Daniel is doing is so important. Daniel Turner, welcome to the show.
Oh, Kim, it's always great to be on with you. Thanks for having me back.
It's great to have you, and I wanted to ask you about the COP28, but you sent this over, and I think this was at the Daily Caller. This was just published. Hold on to your wallet whenever politicians say they are using science to craft policy. And Daniel, I ended up at the grocery store a lot over the last few days, and yesterday I bought some detergent. Now, I know that you can get different prices, but I needed the detergent. I was in western Wyoming, and I kid you not, it was almost $30 for just detergent. I'm like, how are people doing this? And so this piece that you've written is super important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, actually, Fox News yesterday, I was watching Maria Bartiromo's show, and they took that really adorable clip from Home Alone, the Christmas movie, where Kevin goes to the grocery stores and he fulfills his mother's shopping list, and he buys Tide. They bought the exact same brands. He bought laundry detergent and some food and a stove for his frozen dinner, and his bill was a little under $20. And then they fast forwarded to that movie was 1990, and they fast forwarded it to today, and the same purchases, same brands was a little over $70. And you look at that and say, how is it possible that those same items have more than tripled in price? Your salaries have not tripled, right? So clearly inflation is eating away into American lives, into American wallets. And it's because, quite frankly, we've made energy very, very expensive. It also is a terrible monetary policy. We're borrowing and spending like mad. But making energy expensive has made food expensive. It has made all petrochemical products, and laundry detergent is a petrochemical product. It's made all of them expensive. And so when the Biden administration comes out with these phony inflation numbers and they say, well, if you remove energy and food, inflation is actually pretty good. And you say, well, yeah, if I remove the pumpkin pie I ate after Thanksgiving dinner, I actually didn't really binge at all, right? I actually was pretty abstemious. And so it's remarkable that they put out these numbers and try to fool the American people that the economy is good, because anyone who goes shopping knows the economy is not.
Well, and I was talking to a young entrepreneur over the last few days, and he said, my biggest cost is fuel. And then you look over here at the COP28, which, Daniel, I've always kind of wondered. I served for on city council from 2012 to 2016, and I was just kind of wondering, how are all of these policies? We were seeing these policies, things down at the Colorado legislature, making it more difficult on our oil and gas industry. I'm like, how is this happening? And then I looked at COP28, and 80,000 people were over there in Dubai. These are acolytes that they're sending out like ants all over the world. Yeah. This has been going on for a while, Daniel.
It has. I think it's supposed to wrap up this week, but it started the week after Thanksgiving, so they are in their third week. I'm sure your wonderful listeners, if they ever get a 2-day conference in Tampa Bay, they're excited, right? 2 days in a Ramada outside of Jacksonville. Imagine getting 3 weeks in Dubai, right, and calling it a work trip. And that's exactly what this joke of COP28 is. And it's called 28 because it's the 28th year they've been holding it. Last year it was COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. They finished the conference. They all were angry that they couldn't agree on a resolution. So they said, well, we'll have to do it again next year. And sure enough, coming out of COP28 yesterday and today, a bunch of press releases, how they are very angry. They could not agree on a resolution. So you know what? There'll be COP29. And I guarantee you COP29, if it's not in a place like Paris or Edinburgh, which was COP27, or this luxury resort at the Red Sea last year, or Dubai this year, COP29 will be in Marseille. It will be in Barcelona. It's not going to be in Juba in the South Sudan, right? It's not going to be in Bangladesh. They don't go to the third world. They don't go to developing countries. They only go to luxury resorts to tell the rest of us that we need to eat less meat and that we need to give up our gas-powered leaf blowers for the environment.
Can you honestly believe that? And I was talking with a friend of mine. I said, here we have John Kerry that's coming after air conditioning. And when they talk about climate change, everyday people's climate in Phoenix in the middle of the summer is going to change significantly if we get rid of air conditioning. And air conditioning was such a great innovation. And I could not believe that headline. But my friend said, that's where I think the Second Amendment would be really important. I will not give up my air conditioner, which he was saying it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But it actually is pretty important. Air conditioning changed people's lives significantly and where we could live.
Yeah, and absolutely right, and it's why it is the Second Amendment. Our founders were a lot smarter than our current woke society gives them credit for, and part of the reason why they put it second is because they knew that rights have to be enforced, and your rights to property, your rights to liberty have to be enforced from people like John Kerry. Our founders could envision that one day there would be a member of Congress, someone like Ro Khanna, who continues to talk about how the rich don't pay enough in taxes, and we need to go back to the pre-Reagan tax period where people were paying almost 70% of their income in taxes. Our founders envisioned that. They envisioned that there would always be little tyrants, people like John Kerry. And, I don't think John Kerry struggled with the new cost of Thanksgiving dinner. I don't think John Kerry feels the pinch of an electric bill or a gas bill that's 30 or 40% higher than it was at this point last year, which was already 30 or 40% higher than it was the year before that. Yeah, and that's the luxury of the billionaire and elite class. And, I don't begrudge John Kerry his wealth. He made his money the old-fashioned way. He married a rich widow. A lot of people are trying to do that, right? But it is very telling that the people who lead the climate movement, the greatest acolytes for it, are all incredibly rich. It's John Kerry, it's Bill Gates. Al Gore is worth $500 million. He is at top 28, right? It is Tom Steyer, who is worth several $1 billion. It is Michael Bloomberg, who's worth $65 billion. Look at the people who lead the climate movement, who stand up there on these stages with a microphone and lecture to audiences around the world, telling them how they have to change their lifestyle. They are all incredibly rich and powerful people who will not sacrifice one thing for climate change. Bill Gates has 4 private jets. Now, I don't begrudge him his wealth, right? He created a product that we all use. Everyone uses Microsoft in some way or another. So kudos to you, Bill Gates. But you have 4 private jets. I don't know how you can use 4 because you can only be on one at a time, but that's fine. And you're going to try to tell us that we need to give up our gas-powered cars, right? You're trying to tell people who live in Colorado Springs or where I am in rural Virginia that they need to start thinking about biking or taking public transportation for the environment. And you scratch your head and say, oh, this is a lot more tyrannical than we're allowing the people to believe, right? This is a lot more nefarious of an agenda than just caring about the earth. When this ruling class does not sacrifice anything, but all the sacrifices have to come from us.
Well, okay, 2 things. First of all, I want to ask you, 80,000 people for 3 weeks. That's quite the...
a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And who's paying for this? Who... and what we see is these acolytes, then they come back and they're involved in universities, in the public administration departments, and then those people that graduate from those public administration departments go on and they become city planners and county planners and involved in the planning department, and our electeds then actually rely on staff, not realizing that there is this agenda that has been permeating throughout our local governments. Who's paying for all these people to go there?
Yeah, well, for America, several hundred, if not over 1,000, based upon the numbers from last year, are all paid for by the taxpayers. It's considered a taxpayer necessary trip. John Kerry is not going out of pocket, probably even for a cup of coffee. The entire thing is expensed by the taxpayers. And if you look at the list of folks who went, a lot of state and local officials went. The governor of New Mexico was there, Michelle Lujan Grisham. She has one of the largest oil and gas states in the nation, an enormous surplus this year for her state because of oil and gas revenue. She despises the oil and gas industry, does everything she can to end it in her state. But with the revenue that it's generating, she took herself to COP28, and I guarantee you she flew first class as a governor. And I guarantee you she brought an entourage of staffers and schedulers and security. So the taxpayers of New Mexico paid for her. But the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, it's a White House office, very senior level, that is supposed to manage the budget, which is kind of laughable when you're $34 trillion in debt. No one's really managing the budget, but let's pretend. But the OMB director went. And you scratch your head and you say, why does the White House Office of Management and Budget director have to go to an international climate conference? And the answer is because it was in Dubai and it was free. And I'm sure she found a reason to convince someone at the White House to say, you know what, I should probably go to COP28. And they said, yeah, sure, I'll go to COP28. It's not our money. But when you add it all together, 80,000 folks, probably a good percentage of them from America. And remember, they didn't have to get on Zoom, right? They didn't have to do it on Skype. Your kids had to do schooling, and your grandkids for years had to be on Zoom because of a crisis, right? Well, they're saying this is a fossil fuel-driven crisis, and to address it, well, they're going to use fossil fuels and fly to Dubai for several weeks. None of them will ever get on a Zoom call the way they made the rest of us, because that's for the poors, right? That's for the regular folks. That's for the powerless, faceless masses. Go back to that Second Amendment question we talked about earlier. Go back. Those are for the powerless, faceless masses. The elites have a different system, and they live a different life. And these are all the things our founders could envision when they were building this country, when they were writing the Constitution. And you just see it unfurling before you.
It is. That's why the work that you're doing at Power of the Future is so important. I'm talking with Daniel Turner. He is the founder of Power of the Future. My friends, reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant energy is really puts in place the opportunity for everyday people to go after their hopes and dreams. As I mentioned, just this little entrepreneur that building a business, and because of public policy, is making fuel so expensive, which that means he's having to pay that instead of maybe paying a new employee, keeping some profit for himself. That bad word. But we have these discussions, and they are so important to have. And we one of the great sponsors of the show is Lauren Levy.
If you are 62 or older, a reverse mortgage could be a great tool regarding retirement and estate planning. It is essential to understand the process. Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry and has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Licensed in 49 states, Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of The Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
Franktown Firearms staff and customers alike are concerned with your safety and ability to shoot well, and that comes from the sense of community that they foster at their shop. The staff doesn't work on commissions from sales, so there won't be any pressure to buy what you don't need. They host events like Ladies' Night every first Friday and a Tactical Fun Night every third Friday because they value their community and they understand that selling the most expensive product doesn't help you learn to shoot. Your money goes further at Franktown because they'd rather you to be self-sufficient with what you already own and be proficient in using it. If you're looking for a range and shop that can take you to the next level in your self-defense training, learn how to shoot in realistic scenarios from instructors who have been there, done that. Then look no further than Franktown Firearms. Go to klzradio.com/Franktown. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Did want to say thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show, and also thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show as well. I greatly appreciate both of them. The National Shooting Sports Foundation represents the nation's manufacturers, retailers, and distributors of firearms, optics, ammunition, and other related sporting goods media. And they are known for the annual shooting, hunting, outdoor trade show, the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. And also the Center for American Values, located in Pueblo, Colorado on the Riverwalk, is a nonprofit that I dearly love. They are nonpartisan, they're non-political. They focus on honoring our Medal of Honor recipients, keeping those stories alive, and then also on educational programs to instill in ourselves and our children these values of honor, integrity, and patriotism. A great little gift for Christmas is their Medal of Honor quote book. You can get all that information at AmericanValueCenter.org. On the line with me is Daniel Turner. He is the founder of Power of the Future. And so many questions. I guess first and foremost, you mentioned public transportation. And Daniel, again, when I was on city council, I saw this movement for light rail here in the metro area. And I instinctively started to understand this is really an assault up on people's mobility. I saw an elected representative the other day at an event, and he was talking about congestion on I-25 and what were they going to do about it. And I said, is it not great? People are in their cars, going where they want to, taking their kids to, it could be sporting events or practice or going to see friends. I said, is it not great? And people are voting. They are saying, I want to stay in my personal vehicle to go where I want to, when I want to. And it kind of took him back, because over here on the public administration side, they are wringing their hands on how to get people out of their cars, not because really of congestion, but because they want to control where people can go with public transportation. The light rail now here in Colorado is not safe. It's dirty. And people don't want to ride it. So what's your thoughts on that?
100%. We are such a car culture as a nation. It's embedded in our 50s and 60s rock and roll songs. You think of beatnik literature like On the Road by Jack Kerouac, right? The car is an iconic part of the American identity because it does represent that level of freedom. And so under the guise of climate change, you're able to push a much darker agenda, right? You control what people eat. You can control what temperature they keep their homes at. And also you can control their movements. And so when you do see this huge push for transportation, high-speed rail, et cetera, I'm not opposed to railroads, of course. I'm not opposed to building, but I am opposed to using it as an excuse to force people out of their preferred method of transportation and also away from their freedom. Trains are an awful lot about control, and the people who push them, really that's what they want. They won't say that, of course. They'll say it's for climate change. They'll say it's for congestion. Heck, a lot of times the congestion that you see is created by government itself. I grew up and spent my most of my life in New York City until I moved to my glorious farm here in rural Virginia. My whole family is still in New York City, and they're the first city in America to come up with congestion pricing. And you look at what they've done and you say, well, you had some really busy avenues in New York that you took out an entire lane for bikes, and then you took out an entire lane because you want people to ride the bus. And now it used to be a 4-lane 10th Avenue is now a 2-lane 10th Avenue. And then your government says, oh my gosh, look how crowded 10th Avenue is. We better charge people for being on 10th Avenue. And you say, well, you created this problem, right? You created a lot of the congestion that was there. And so a lot of times the congestion is caused by government, and quite frankly, it is intentional. But yeah, I'm not opposed to railroads. I'm not opposed to buses. I'm not opposed to EVs. But I'm always skeptical of politicians who are really pushing these things with the mandate that you give up your gas-powered car, because it's not about the earth. It is about controlling you and controlling your movement, and that's completely contrary to our DNA.
Well, and to your point, and thank you for saying that you're not opposed to these other things. I know sometimes it comes across that I'm opposed to them. I'm not. But I said, we need to have a level playing field, if you will, from an economic standpoint, where people can vote how they want to move around. And many times it is with their personal vehicle. And one of the things I learned when I was on city council is that the price of the fare for light rail, this was a number of years ago, your fare only covered 20% of that. The rest of that was being subsidized with other revenue sources. And so it can't stand on its own. And if people really had to pay the price of light rail, then nobody probably would ride it. And we've got a couple of minutes left. How do you want to button this up, Daniel?
It's just always great to be on your program. My last final thoughts are probably as we head into winter. Last year, America dodged a bullet. Of course, they blamed climate change. We had such a mild winter, at least on the East Coast. And if you know anything about East Coasters, that's the only part of America that matters, right? If it happened in New York, it's national news. If it happens in Colorado, no one really cares, right? Look at the fires that we saw from Canada a couple months ago, right? New York was covered in smoke, and it was in the news for days and days and days. And everyone out west said, yeah, we get those forest fire smoke because no one ever puts it on the news for us. But New York and the East Coast, they dodged the bullet when it came to winter last year. It was very mild. And, of course, they decried climate change. You're never going to see snow again. But dodging the bullet means that very high and scarce natural gas and coal reserves did not have the cataclysmic consequences. Well, we don't know what this winter is going to bring. Despite the Farmer's Almanac or any predictions, winter hasn't even officially begun, and we don't know what it's going to bring. And I just hope and pray that climate change is real and we do have a mild winter, because if we do get sub-zero temperatures for days or weeks on end, the entire Northeast in particular is not prepared. And the ones who are going to suffer the most are going to be the elderly, the poor, the powerless voices, and our politicians who have pushed this anti-fossil fuel agenda are going to have blood on their hands. So I hope climate change is real. I hope we have the most mild winter in history, because I want people to live. I'd rather deal with the fake, you believe in, you're causing climate change. I'd rather deal with all of that fallout than the death that is inevitable if we have a hard winter. And that's my biggest concern right now. When you eliminate fossil fuels, you eliminate freedom, but you also eliminate security and energy security. And America right now is not energy secure.
That is very, very concerning. Daniel Turner, it is so great to have you. He is the founder of Power of the Future, and this is a good time to say, hey, check out our documentary, A Climate Conversation, and you can find that at climateconversation.com. Daniel Turner, I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you in the new year.
Thank you so much, Kim. Merry Christmas to you.
Okay, and again, that's Daniel Turner, founder of Power of the Future. Our quote for the end of the show is from John Quincy Adams. And I take a lot of hope in this. He says, patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. So, my friends, today be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you. God bless America. And stay tuned for hour number 2.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.
It's the Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
And when government gets bigger, the individual gets smaller.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
For thee, but not for me. And I agree that we got to change that.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
If, in fact, you are working for the man, it's a new form of slavery.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Indeed, let's have a conversation. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. I wanted to say thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show, and also thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show as well. The National Shooting Sports Foundation, the Second Amendment is so important, and they're doing such great work because they have a government relations team that relentlessly advocates for measures on behalf and works in defense of the firearm and ammunition industry at all levels and before all branches of government. And they're a national leader in defending the right to keep and bear arms. Because if you can't legally produce, ship, and buy a firearm, then you can't bear it. And my friends, I'm so concerned with what I see, these pictures coming from the southern border. And as many of you know, my father just recently passed on. One of the things that he would always say to me, and it was, and I think this was a lesson to think critically. He says, "Now put your thinking cap on, think this through." And I think with indoctrination that's happened in our country, and with just this barrage of headlines that come at us, I think people have gotten maybe mentally lazy to discern and take a look at a headline and say, is this headline trying to put me back on my heels? Where's the truth in this? So regarding our right to keep and bear firearms, quite frankly, that is first and foremost. When we talk about government as local, the most local is ourselves and our families, how we govern ourselves, how we teach our families, but we also need to be able to protect our families. So let's take a look at this here. First of all, this open border, and when I see these pictures of just rows and rows and rows of fighting age men that are coming across our border. And yes, there may be a few that are coming here to try to get jobs, to send money back to their families. But they need to come here legally, and we can figure out ways to do that for people that want to come here legally to work. We can figure that out. But we don't have any idea about all these people that are coming across the border. And there are people that are coming across that want to hurt us. And I think they're being embedded in our neighborhoods through all of the affordable housing that's going on here. And again, taking money from Americans, hardworking Americans. When we talk with Daniel Turner in the first hour, $30 for Tide to wash your clothes. Really? So here we have everyday people that don't want to be on government assistance. We want to be able to take care of ourselves. But when government, through government-induced inflation, making energy is so expensive, and all the derivatives that come from petroleum products more expensive, it's squeezing people that want to go after their hopes and dreams. And then taking money from us via taxes, it could be sales tax or other taxes and fees, and using it for subsidized housing, affordable housing, subsidized housing, and we're not even sure who is being embedded into these affordable housing units. And actually, Patty, speaking of that, Patty used to do our research for us, had sent me a text message, and she had called this, that there are office buildings that, here, let me get to this. I think it is right here in Denver. Let me make sure. Let's see. I can't find it right now, but anyway, office buildings that are empty are being switched over to affordable housing units. But so interesting, I had asked, again, when I was on city council, why don't we convert many of these apartment buildings into ownership units so that people could start to have condos and start to create wealth and equity through that? And what was told to me by the staff was that, well, that would be too difficult to convert those over to condos. And I'm like, I don't quite understand that. But now we can take office buildings and we can convert those to affordable subsidized housing units. We need to really start to rethink this whole public policy on this. So anyway, I need to get through our word of the day, though, and to our quote of the day, and then we'll continue on. Our word of the day is intermittent, and it is an adjective. It means stopping and starting at intervals, periodic, alternately containing and empty of water, or coming and going at intervals, alternating, recurrent, periodic. Here's my sentence. I said, Americans are taking for granted reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant power sources. Wind and solar provide intermittent power. This makes it very difficult for individuals to pursue their hopes and dreams if we can't get our car out of the garage because of intermittent electricity. Or what about if you can't turn your computer on? What about your heat? What about air conditioning in the summer? And As Daniel Turner said in the first hour, tongue-in-cheek, he hopes that climate change is real and that we'll have a mild winter on the East Coast, because if not, people are going to die because we do not have a secure energy power system here in America right now. And it is all because of public policy. And as my father said, put your thinking cap on and connect the dots. And so that's what we do on this show, is to try to make that happen. Our quote of the day here at the beginning, and again, probably don't agree totally with her politics, but I think this is a really an interesting quote, and that is from Mary Edwards. She was born 1949, died in 2010. She was an American attorney, author, healthcare activist. That's probably the part that I'm very concerned about. But she was married to John Edwards, the former U.S. Senator from North Carolina, who was the 2004 United States Democrat vice presidential nominee. And, of course, she was fighting breast cancer. I think it was breast cancer. But she said this. She said she stood in the storm, and the wind did not blow her way. She adjusted her sails. I just thought that was really a lovely quote. So let's see. Let's continue on with some of our other headlines here. This was from San Francisco official says homelessness crisis is absolutely the result of capitalism and calls for police cuts. As if San Francisco wasn't in, a downward spiral as it is. This is absolutely unbelievable. And this is District 5 Supervisor Dean Preston, so that would be the equivalent of like their city council. And he recently stated in the documentary The Battle for San Francisco that the homelessness crisis in his district, which includes the Tenderloin, is absolutely the result of capitalism and what happens at the bottom rungs of the economic system. He argued that the biggest driver of homelessness is people losing jobs, income, or getting evicted for inability to pay rent. And he blamed major landlords literally causing folks to lose their homes through evictions and real estate speculation, pricing people out. And there is some basis on this. As far as what we've seen is big business and big government like each other. And they have been in bed together for quite some time in San Francisco. And they're, quite frankly, these PBIs, politicians, bureaucrats, and interested parties, are all in bed together. And I've mentioned it before, but there was a headline recently, and this is not all of the money that is going to homelessness in Denver, but $100 million is going into the homeless issue here in Denver. Well, again, as my dad said, put your thinking cap on, connect the dots. If there's $100 million, if people, and a little bit of that will trickle down to the homeless person, but there's people that are making big bank. These PBIs, they're not creating anything, but they're making big bank off of this tragedy of homelessness and putting in we'll talk with Karen about it tomorrow, Karen Levine. But the cost of fees and regulations to just get a house out of the ground is significant. If we started to reduce those fees, then we would start to make individual home ownership more affordable. But that is not what the PBIs want. They want people to be dependent on government. They want to continue to have these programs. They make big salaries. They have big pensions, and there's no way they'll ever solve these problems because they're all in bed together and they're making big bank on it. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, everyday individuals who are just trying to make it. They want to be law-abiding citizens. They want to pay the necessary taxes, but nothing more, so that they can keep more money in their pocket. And this government-induced inflation, and it began on day one with the Biden administration and the radical activist Democrats that are controlling that, the Biden administration, and that is try to shut down the petroleum industry. And I know that there's nuclear. One of our listeners is really focused on methane. But this war on oil and gas and the derivatives, all the products that come from oil and gas, like as Daniel said, our detergent so we can keep our clothes clean. Making that all so expensive is all government induced. And the Biden administration and the radical activist Democrats that are controlling it, day one, remember when he shut down the Keystone Pipeline. And so it's important, again, my friends, connect the dots, put our thinking caps on. And it is so important to do that. And check out our movie, aclimateconversation.com. This is the brainchild of Walt Johnson. He and his wife, Ramey, took money out of their retirement account to make this film. And it is so timely. The timing is so perfect for A Climate Conversation. So be sure and check it out. It's a little under an hour. And it's also been aired a number of times over on Newsmax. But that is at aclimateconversation.com, aclimateconversation.com. I have wonderful sponsors. I know each and every one of them personally and highly recommend them. And one of those great sponsors is the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team, and they can create personalized insurance plans to cover all your needs, from protection for your cars to your home, condo, boat, motorcycle, business, and renters coverage. Contact the Roger Mangan Team now at 303-795-8855 for a complimentary appointment. Like a good neighbor, Roger Mangan's team is there.
Most of us have been there. That surprise crunch when you backed into a car in a parking lot or someone rear-ended you at a stoplight. First thing you do is stop and breathe. Second, say a prayer of gratitude that no one was hurt. Third, look for your insurance card. And fourth, be grateful that you have your insurance with Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Agency. You can breathe easier knowing that you can reach the Roger Mangan team 24/7 when you need them. For that Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance peace of mind, call Roger Mangan today at 303-795-8855. That's 303-795-8855.
Award-winning realtor Karen Levine has nearly 30 years of experience with RE/MAX Alliance. Karen Levine works to protect your property rights at the local, county, state, and national level. Karen Levine believes in home ownership. Working with realtor Karen Levine helps you navigate through the process of buying or selling your home. Call Karen Levine to help you buy or sell your home because she understands that it's more than just a house. Call award-winning realtor Karen Levine with RE/MAX Alliance today at 303-877-7516. That's 303-877-7516.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of The Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. And I want to help you with your Christmas gift list, and that one of the things that you could do is to buy a gift certificate from Jansen Photography. It could be for your children and their family, or actually it could be for your grandchildren, for a portrait. These portraits of families and children, people change, they grow up, they pass on, and they are such treasures. And Jansen Photography is a great place to get a gift certificate. Glenn Jansen and Mary Jansen, they just work magic with these portraits. So for more information, go to jansenphotography.com. That's jansenphotography.com. It is Wednesday, so that means it's a Trent Loos Wednesday. Trent Loos, I have so much I want to talk with you about, but welcome.
Thanks, Kim. And we're just 8 days away.
8 days away from what?
Winter solstice, when the days start getting longer. I'm ready. These short days are driving me nuts.
They are, me too. Most definitely. So, gosh, 8 days, that's hard to believe. Christmas is right around the corner. But, Trent, it is so timely. You had sent this headline to me, and I'd seen it as well, and regarding the reintroduction of gray wolves here in Colorado. And it says just weeks before the deadline for Colorado to begin reintroducing gray wolves under a voter-approved initiative. Again, I have to, that initiative, that was unbelievable to me. It said that the wolves would be introduced west of the Continental Divide. So there must be really smart wolves that they're going to know not to go east of the Continental Divide. But that was in the initiative. But representatives of the cattle industry are suing state and federal agencies in hopes of delaying the predator's release. So what's your thoughts on this?
Well, and I know that they're supposed to release 10 by the end of December and then 50 total over a 5-year period of time. And on the surface, people might say, 50 wolves, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that it changes the entire ecosystem. The animals are nervous all the time. There's an additional predator added to the mix. And at the end of the day, it is going to disrupt the supply of food. We've monitored, we've managed, and we have taken care of these resources so that we can feed people abundantly. And every one of these steps is just in the opposite direction of what we need going forward. The other part that now looking back, Kim, you're like, what really happened here? Because you'll notice even that article says in a narrowly defeated election and a ballot initiative. We all know that algorithms are controlling the outcome of elections. Maybe the Colorado voters didn't even vote this way. So right. I applaud the effort, and in fact, I'm good friends with Robert Farnham, who has been taking the lead on this from Brush, Colorado. And I just wanted to share it with you because it just ties right into what we've been talking about in terms of the disruption, not only of the wildlife in the area and the people who like to go hunting elk or whatever the case may be, but just the everyday rancher taking care of the land and livestock to feed people.
Well, and that is the thing that we are realizing is our food sources are truly under attack. Again, as I look at these headlines, it can be daunting when I look at just all of these different policies that are going to make it more difficult for everyday people to thrive, flourish, take care of their families. And certainly beef, meat is a dense energy source. It's one of those things when you eat it, I certainly feel better. I have more energy. And again, that goes over to oil and gas. Oil and gas is a dense energy source. And it seems like these dense energy sources where people can, again, thrive and flourish are under attack by the elites that were just over at COP at COP28. But I've got something very snarky to say just from a...
All right, go snarky.
Okay. Well, you said that they're...
Do you know how to be snarky? I'm not sure you know how to be snarky.
Oh, I do, but I do try to control it somewhat on the radio. But okay, so 10 wolves are supposed to be introduced at the end of December with a total of 50. But you know what could solve this problem is if they actually only introduced female wolves or male wolves that or I was just no wait never mind. How about this? Okay, maybe it would be male wolves.
Male wolves. Females.
Okay, so they would introduce male wolves and then male wolves that are identifying as females instead of females. And so guess what? Then you would not have any offspring here shortly thereafter, right?
No, that's what we support in the human population only. We want nature to take its course in every other regard. But, Kim, along those lines, I want to also just take that one step farther. When you have wolves, a keystone predator that is making an impact and creating this fear within the animal population, whether that be wildlife or domestic cattle or sheep, quite frankly, there's one component of this that nobody's talking about. That is, you will displace the grazing of these said animals. Because at some point, they're going to alter how they're grazing. Consequently, if you do not graze something to the best of your ability in terms of management, what happens? You have an increased fuel load. Over a period of time, we know that in the mountain region, there's going to be a spark. There's going to be somebody screw up. It will lead to catastrophic fires, which then will fly in the face of what everybody talks about in terms of climate crisis and all these other issues. We can manage all of this by managing the resource and keep the wolves out of the mix.
There are those that say, but wolves are part of the whole ecosystem, and I think the thing about it is they want to introduce wolves, but they forget that man as hunters would also be part of that ecosystem as well. So how do you address that when people mention that to you, Trent?
So the Department of Wildlife in every state, whatever the name is in each state, determines what a population is, and then they determine what the proper number of animals to be removed through a hunting season would be. I have my suspicions that the wolf population does not gather in a little soiree passing a peace pipe saying, our limit on elk this year is only 3 females, so let's make sure we don't go over 3 females or we'll decimate the population. My point is that man has a brain. We have the ability through biological sciences to figure out exactly what the right number of animals that can be harvested through hunters. Wolves don't do that. They kill to kill.
Well, and this just came in from one of our listeners, and that is wolves do kill for sport, not just because they're hungry. And so I think that's an important thing. And, as people that, saw these, and I mentioned it to you, and I realized that there was going to be a real problem. I had been up in North Denver and had on the wall or on the outside of a building, there was a big mural of a wolf and just romanticizing the wolf. And this was before this vote. And I'm like, I think this is going to be a problem because we've got people out there that are romanticizing the wolf, the freedom of the wolf, and, running through the snow and not really thinking, as my dad used to say, put your thinking cap on and connect the dots. And that's what you're doing on this, Trent.
Well, it's remaining rooted in what's important for the ecosystem, for the health of the planet, for the health of the human being. And the wolf does not factor into that.
Okay, I want to continue the conversation, and I think let's go to break a little bit early because I was up in western Wyoming, which I dearly love. I was driving to the airport, and I'm just going to leave that as a cliffhanger. I'm talking with Trent Loos, and we get to do this show because we have these amazing sponsors, and one of those great sponsors is Lauren Levy.
If you are 62 or older, a reverse mortgage could be a great tool regarding retirement and estate planning. It is essential to understand the process. Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry and has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Licensed in 49 states, Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. This is kimmonson.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Tell your friends and family about the show. I want to say thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show, and thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show as well. Helping with your or your Christmas gift list. One of those things would be to go to the Center for American Values website. That's AmericanValueCenter.org, and order their great little Medal of Honor quote book. It is absolutely inspirational, and it is just a great gift for friends and family. And you can get that again by going to AmericanValueCenter.org. Okay, Trent Loos, I was in western Wyoming. I was driving to the Jackson airport yesterday, and there is a huge elk refuge, which is located in between Jackson and the airport. And I'm looking at all that land. And, of course, real estate in Jackson is super expensive, and so they're doing what's happening. Their city council and their staff is doing what other municipalities are doing, and that is to go into single-family neighborhoods, and they're building affordable, which means subsidized housing, changing the fabric of those neighborhoods because they say we need affordable housing. But I'm looking at the acres and acres and acres for the elk refuge, and I know that people have an affinity for that, but it's open space, taking land that could be for homes. And okay, so we like elk. So let's say that we like the elk refuge, but then how is it that we would introduce wolves that don't know where the refuge is? So putting our thinking cap on, connecting the dots, these things don't match up. Your thoughts?
You don't think they addressed that little wolf council soiree I talked about?
Okay, we're not going over on the elk refuge. There's a line there, right?
Right. We can't go over there. They're protected. We'll get fined by the EPA if we go over there, or the Fish and Wildlife. So I don't know enough about the elk refuge. Is that private property? Is that public property? Or is it funded by private donations? Are we as taxpayers funding the elk refuge? What is that about?
You know what? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. So, but that brings up another...
Because that does change everything. I mean,
okay.
I need to know, before I know what's going on with all that, I need to know if that's a taxpayer-funded outfit or if it's private.
Well, okay, and I don't know the answer to that. So, okay, taxpayer... Certainly we could, we can go to Boulder. How about let's go to Boulder, Colorado, and Boulder County. They own a lot of land. They own, the government of Boulder, the county, owns a lot of land in Boulder and have created an urban corridor that they can't build outside of that. And open space, which they love the term open space, but it is also taking land out of production, land out of where you could build homes. And I think that this is part of the whole 30 by 30. But the other thing is, going back to the elk refuge, is, again, I should know, we'll have to get the answer on it, but so this is the what ifs, is big money people can come in and buy the land, maybe in a nonprofit, and they're not paying taxes. I guess maybe I need to do the research on this, and we'll talk about it next week. But there's all kinds of things that are put in place to take land out of production. I think that's where I'm at on this.
Okay, so if this is the National Elk Refuge, which I've just pulled up here, that is part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So, I mean, you're spot on in this regard, and it comes back to that discussion I had a month ago in Nebraska on a National Wildlife Refuge. They were cutting shelter belts. This looks like a taxpayer-funded, if it's the one that you drove past, which I'm sure that it is, and it's all about wildlife conservation is at the heart of what makes the National Elk Refuge unique and unparalleled in the greater Keystone ecosystem. So it must be actually part of Yellowstone National Park, which means all of us fund this, which means that we fund adding predators to what people perceive to be an elk refuge. So the coyotes or the wolves. Well, coyotes aren't really a threat to an elk, but the wolf would be. And are they, like you said, are they going to cross the line? Do they know not to go interfere? What exactly is all of this reserved space that is not contributing to improving the food supply?
Okay, and I should have had these answers again before I started this, but I'm looking at it as well. It's almost 25,000 acres. And I look at this, and here you've got the town council and staff and planning. They're all, wringing their hands that we don't have enough housing. Housing is not affordable. Our workers don't have places that they can live, so we need to come in and do subsidized housing, which is taking money from people that are trying to not be on any kind of public assistance. And you've taken almost 25,000 acres, right next to the town, out of any kind of development. I mean, you could take just maybe 4,700 of those acres and build housing, and you would start to alleviate the affordable housing problem in Jackson. Yes?
I don't know. I'm not impressed with Jackson. I don't know if they have the ability to create a solution there. But to your point, and the bigger issue is 1 in 3 acres in the United States is owned by the federal government. 1 in 3 acres. And I have spent a lot of time on these initiatives in the West because when you have a third of the land mass owned by the government, that land still has the potential to produce something. And that's why back in the 1860s, they made deals, they being the states, particularly 11 western states that have federal land, they made deals with ranchers that if you will take and manage this, we will give you an allotment tied to a vested water right. And that worked fantastic. And then everything changed in 1934 with the Taylor Grazing Act. But what I want to get to, Kim, is that I've been on so many of these allotments throughout Oregon and Idaho and Nevada in particular, and even Arizona. If we were to manage that as individual citizens and take care of that property like it should be taken care of and run the number of animal units per month, AUMs, animal units per month, that we should in terms of livestock, in conjunction with the horses that are already there, and manage those properly and not let them grow out of control rapidly as they're doing currently. But if we would just manage cattle and sheep, we should generate 110 million protein meals a year with that land and proper management in AUMs. Best estimation that I have with a friend, Hank Vogler, who's in Nevada, is that currently we are generating 20 million protein meals a year from that land. It is 1/5 of what it should be. The significance of that is that land is not owned by the federal government. We call it federal land. It's public land. And you and I as taxpayers own part of that property. And to the bigger problem is not only have they reduced the proper grazing so that we can feed more people with the land that we possess, they're now starting to say that you as a taxpayer, because it used to be multiple use, you could go out there with your four-wheeler, you could go out there with your snowmobile, you could go out there and hike, or your horse, or whatever the case may be. They're shutting that down. And just yesterday I got a document that said anything that has the word conservation in it, back to your point about 30 by 30 coming to fruition, anything that has the term conservation in it is going to be deemed an asset of the United States. We're going to start trading that the first of the year on a stock exchange, and then when that happens, we as taxpayers and landowners of this country will not be able to access the very land that we own in this nation. That is where we're headed.
Okay. Then we're getting to a point where property rights ownership is just so totally under attack. This whole thing from the World Economic Forum that by 2030 that we'll own nothing and be happy about it. It seems like that ball, they really have that ball rolling, Trent Loos.
I think that they have recognized that we're onto them quicker than they thought we would be. And so that's why you see the urgency in adopting these measures for climate crisis, why you see the urgency in shutting down coal-fired power plants, why you see the urgency in taking these rights away from us. And I could not agree with you more, Kim. Everything that I just described and the removal, because those ranchers that are on public land, they have rights. They have property rights just like I do, although they're structured a little differently. They're practicing on those ranchers, on those managers of that land owned by the taxpayers of this nation. And when they perfect it, they come to all of us. It kind of comes back to the situation that I turned you on in Colorado, where they wanted to take a half an acre from a lady who purchased it properly and turned it into a park. This is what we want to do on a large scale all across this country. And if you see what Justin Trudeau did coming out of COP28, it speaks volumes to what it is they think they can get away with in terms of reducing our food supply so that we're more vulnerable.
People, these elites, it's so antithetical to this American idea, this idea of individuals having rights and this focus on individuals. I mean, what happened? The founders, they weren't sure what was going to happen if everyday people had these rights from God of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and what would happen. Well, what happened is everyday people can thrive and prosper, which is where we are right now in America. And right now, I'm concerned that this great idea that we had, that if we do not step forward and protect it, we are living on the fumes of freedom. And we cannot let that happen. We must stand at this particular point in time, Trent Loos.
I think it's structured very differently, but I think we are no different than 1776. When led by the Sons of Liberty, we decided to pull ourselves away from Great Britain. I mean, we have more technology, we have all of these things happening in more instant fashion, but I don't think it's any different, Kim. And in fact, my producer on Across the Pond every morning pulled up an amazing statistic, and I'll just put you on the spot. What do you think is the most uniformly celebrated annual event by more nations around the world than any other event?
Christmas?
That's exactly what I said, and I was wrong. And then I was reminded that 50% of the world is Muslim and Jewish, and so they would not celebrate Christmas. 67 countries around the world celebrate their independence from Great Britain on an annual basis. Let that sink in a moment. And who still controls, even though we celebrate the 4th of July each year, who still controls our monetary values? Who controls the banking system? The Federal Reserve? Well, who's the Federal Reserve? It's not the federal government. It's independent individuals. Like, they're still named Rothschilds and Rockefellers. So we and 67 other countries, including Canada, 1867 is when they claim they pulled themselves away from Great Britain. 67 countries around the world celebrating independence from Great Britain. But have we accomplished it?
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. Ultimately, well, Trent, I have to ask this. I mean, everyday people, okay, our liberty from Great Britain, and to your point, the banking system, the Federal Reserve is going to be meeting today. We're going to have Lauren Levy on tomorrow to determine what they're going to do. And this is government-induced inflation is what is affecting all of us. And as Daniel Turner said in the first hour, they take out energy and food and they say, oh, everything's fine. But they're actually increasing the cost of energy and food so significantly that everyday people are not going to be able to thrive and flourish like we used to be able to do.
I recognize that I'm a beef producer. I love the beef industry. I love what the cow does, but I really share my enthusiasm, not because I'm involved, but I recognize why God put a beef cow, a ruminant animal, one stomach, 4 chambers, so that it can consume cellulose material, because nearly 80% of the world's land mass cannot grow crops to feed people, but a ruminant animal can do that, upcycles it into the most nutrient-dense food substance on the planet. The independence of our nation completely resides on the backs of the cattle and the cattle owners, because it's that land mass that they want. Anybody who can take otherwise useless land and turn it into food continues to maintain a level of freedom that cannot be touched by tyranny. That's why the cow is demonized as a contributor to climate change. That's why at every turn we're trying to make beef a luxury item. That's the grave threat. If beef becomes a luxury item where only the elites can afford it, we're all in trouble. And I really believe it's that direct.
And that is what is being attempted. And it's all of these little death by 1,000 cuts. And one of those is here in Denver. That there is going to be a ballot initiative to eliminate meat processing in Denver. This is all connected to the big picture, Trent Loos.
It is. It's all funneled. The money that goes into projects like that comes from out-of-country interest. It's no different than the animal rights discussion. You and I, when we started talking about these food initiatives, we spent so much time talking about eggs. And I've recently determined that all of these trillions of dollars that comes into the animal rights initiative to protect the wolf, they don't care about the wolf.
No.
They care about controlling people, and they use the sentiment of animals. Here's what I want to do, Kim. I want to remind every citizen that they talk about demonizing the cow, but these same people have also said you cannot own a pet because the pet contributes to climate change. They're taking your dog Fluffy. Oh, wait, we don't call our dogs Fluffy anymore. We call them William Winston III because they're one of our family members. We have to understand that nobody is immune from this attack, and everyone must engage.
Well, and that is absolutely for sure. We're going to go to break, and last week we had a caller, Wade, which we had invited him to call back. The number is 303-477-5600 because he had some comments regarding climate change, so would love to have him call back. I'm talking with Trent Loos, sixth-generation farmer and rancher, and just trying to understand, help you connect the dots. As my dad used to say, put your thinking cap on, start to connect this. And it's so, so important. We have these discussions because of our sponsors. One of those great sponsors is John Boson with Boson Law.
Boson Law fights for clients who've been injured or family members who have lost a loved one due to the careless, reckless, or wrongful conduct of others. Whether injured in a car accident, suffered an injury due to a product or bad pharmaceutical drug, or need help fighting for medical care and benefits following an accident at work, don't go it alone and uninformed. Boson Law is the law firm you need in your corner. Time is of the essence with any personal injury claim. Call 303-999-9999 to schedule your complimentary consultation. That number again is 303-999-9999. Call now.
Focused and wise marketing is essential for your success, especially during tough economic times. If you love The Kim Monson Show, strive for excellence and understand the importance of engaging in the battle of ideas that is raging in America, then talk with Kim about partnership, sponsorship opportunities. Email Kim at kimmunson.com. Kim focuses on creating relationships with individuals and businesses that are tops in their fields. So they are the trusted experts listeners turn to when looking for products or services. Kim personally endorses each of her sponsors. Again, reach out to Kim at kimmunson.com.
Franktown Firearms staff and customers alike are concerned with your safety and ability to shoot well, and that comes from the sense of community that they foster at their shop. The staff doesn't work on commissions from sales, so there won't be any pressure to buy what you don't need. They host events like Ladies' Night every first Friday and a Tactical Fun Night every third Friday because they value their community and they understand that selling the most expensive product doesn't help you learn to shoot. Your money goes further at Franktown because they'd rather you to be self-sufficient with what you already own and be proficient in using it. If you're looking for a range and shop that can take you to the next level in your self-defense training, learn how to shoot in realistic scenarios from instructors who have been there, done that. Then look no further than Franktown Firearms. Go to klzradio.com/Franktown. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Did want to mention for your Christmas list, the USMC Memorial Foundation. They are selling bricks on their pathways of service, on the pathways that will be out at the Marine Memorial after the new remodel. You can honor your loved one's military service or your military service by buying a brick. You can do that by going to usmcmemorialfoundation.org. Trent Loos is on the line. He is sixth-generation farmer and rancher. And several things. A listener called in and just wanted to ask the question, where in the Constitution does it say that the federal government, the Bureau of Land Management, would own or be in control of all this land? So that's his first question.
Directly a violation of the Constitution. Spot on. Great question.
Okay, next thing. And this listener, I don't think he likes farmers and ranchers very much. He said BLM land was never designed for rancher farmers to make money on and build a huge empire. What would you say to that listener?
I would say show me a farmer or rancher who's created a great empire by managing the land owned by the taxpayers of the nation. Secondly, the reason that it's still owned by the federal government in the early days is because nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to take this or would buy it. And you take Nevada, for example, 87% owned by federal and state government, which, again, is the taxpayers of the federal and state individuals. But why Nevada? And why did Nevada become a state so early compared to the rest of the states west of the Mississippi? Well, it had to do with the Civil War and the silver deposits that exist in Nevada. So the government went out and seized that land and then realized that nobody wanted to come and take care of it, so they started creating the federal land management ranching scenario so that you could convert this high desert into something that would improve human lives. Every resource in this nation should be about improving life in some way, shape, or form, improving the planet itself, and improving human health. If you're not doing that, you're doing something wrong.
Excellent point on that. Trent, we've got Wyatt in Wyoming is on the line. Wyatt, what's on your radar?
Well, good morning, guys. To that listener that didn't like the BLM, I would like to, or didn't like the ranchers on the BLM land, I would like to ask him where in the Constitution does it say that we're supposed to have a BLM, or for that matter, a national forest system. I would argue that in the Constitution, it says that the government shall own the Washington, D.C. area, and then areas that are needed for forts and military protection. That's it. The rest of the land should be owned by private citizens.
I think that pretty well nails it. Thank you, Wyatt in Wyoming. Did you have anything else, or was that the main point that you wanted to make?
That was the main point. We have gotten away from the Constitution, and we need to get back to it.
Well, in the Constitution, property rights are so important. And let's see, how are we doing on time? You mentioned the word, thank you, Wyatt in Wyoming. Trent, you mentioned this thing about conservation, anything with the conservation in it. And I was not familiar with that. But again, growing up in rural Kansas, we have these conservation easements. So what does this mean? And you mentioned this is going to be traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So talk a little bit more about that.
It's called asset management, asset trading, and I've just become aware of it myself on Halloween. And there are people that are concerned during the Christmas break, so to speak, that there'll be developments in this taking place where the land itself, the resources that we have as a nation, would physically be traded so that people could purchase entities like BlackRock could purchase the land on the New York Stock Exchange. And if that happens, and if you signed a conservation easement that is now held by, let's say even the Nature's Conservancy, which does most everything they do in the public-private partnership with the Bureau of Land Management or the Corps of Engineers or whoever they may be working with, your own property could literally be traded on the New York Stock Exchange without your knowledge or without your agreement. This is a very dangerous time, and there are many people in the past 3 years, since I've spent so much time talking about 30 by 30 around the nation, Conservation Reserve Program, CRP acres. I've had so many people say, I was going to sign that, and then I actually read the fine print, and I realized this was a path to a place I did not want to be.
But a lot of farmers have signed that. And
farmers have signed that, and farmers continue to sign that because we've increased our cost of doing business to the point where we seek any opportunity to bring revenue back into our system. We create this economic crisis for the people closest to the land, and then the government comes and says, here, we'll help you with that. We'll give you a conservation easement. We'll give you this money if you just follow our line of thinking. And I'm told 2024, there's going to be many people regret that.
Okay, so we've got about 2 minutes left. I was at an event just recently, and elected representative had said, hey, we're really excited that there has been some land that apparently it sounded to me like the person had died, but when they died, they had actually given the land to open space. We're so excited about open space. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that means that land is being totally taken out of opportunities for production, but all under the guise of open space. So 2 minutes, how would you address that, Trent Loos?
Yeah, I remember the first time I was in Pennsylvania, and I heard people within the agricultural community talking about an easement they were paid to keep their land in open space. And I remember the first time I was in California, and somebody was paid an easement to promote wildlife species and diversity on their place. Those are all great ideas, except when you're getting a conservation easement payment, when you're getting a payment in any way, shape, or form, if you take a subsidy in any way, shape, or form, you have literally just signed over some portion of your property to somebody that you don't know.
Okay, and Trent, we've got Jenny on the line. Jenny, we only have a minute, but you said you could connect the dots.
Okay, guys. I've been warning people about conservation easements for about 25 years because when you sign a conservation easement, first of all, you're splitting the title of that land and you're inviting a third party onto your property to tell you what to do with that property. We have Maurice Strong, who in sustainability, he said that we will have the people in cages and the animals looking in on them. He has a 200,000-acre ranch in La Blanca County. So, they never practice what they preach. And the same thing with these wolves. We never had these wolves. They were eradicated in the mid-'40s. And now, just like they've tricked the public with voting for open space taxes and then applying that amount to the same amount of grant money they can receive. They're trying to do that with the wolves. So now at CSU they have okay, go on.
Jenny, we are out of time, but perhaps you can call in tomorrow and we can talk about that again in the last segment. So I'd love to have you do that, or we can do it next week with Trent when he's on. Maybe we should do that. We'll figure it out.
Because they don't want to coexist with people. Okay, I'll call in. Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll get it figured out. Okay, she is pretty smart, Trent Loos. We've got like 5 seconds to say goodbye. Thank you so much.
God bless the veterans and the farmers who feed us.
And that's Trent Loos, sixth-generation farmer and rancher. Quote for the end of the show is John Quincy Adams. He says, patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. That's why we do this show. So my friends, today be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America.
And I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.